At Dot and Company, we believe that all agencies deserve amazing account managers and that all of those account managers deserve to be supported, encouraged, and loved on. That's why we started CAM Community, a membership only for account managers. And inside, you'll gain access to the exact training we use to train our own client facing account managers, but also access to all of our SOPs, processes, and live trainings on a variety of topics. If you're an account manager, this is the place you've been waiting for. Learn more at dotandcompany.co/CAM community.
Yeah, there can be so many different ways that they're being difficult, but you're not alone. And it's always best dealt with, asking somebody who is familiar in the marketing world how best to deal with these tricky situations because they do come up no matter how hard you try.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot and Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
We're Kayla and Kristen. I'm Kayla. I've been with Dot for over 2 years, and I've been in the communications and marketing industry for 10 plus years. And I got my colleague Kristen here, who...
Yeah, I've also been in the industry for, I want to say 10 plus years.
Definitely.
Marketing. And I have been with Dot for almost a full year now, which is really exciting. My anniversary is coming up.
That is very exciting. It is fun when you get to celebrate those anniversaries and get through the kind of newbie hurdle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm ready to not be new anymore.
Even though you're not new.
No.
But it's new with a company. See, these are things that people don't prep you for when you go into account management, is jumping into roles that are with a new company, and you're oh, this is I know the way things work. I've done paid ads, I've done social media, whatever. But then you jump in and you forget it's a brand new company. You have to relearn their language, their processes, or create processes, or how you even communicate with the internal team. Totally got sidetracked with that one. Because today we're not talking about that. We're talking about tricky clients. So story-wise, I have a story. Kristen has a story.
I can tell my story.
Love it. Take it away, Kristen.
So just kind of speaking to being newer in agencies, you do have to kind of learn the ropes, and some of those things are crisis management. You don't always go into agencies with solutions for everything, and sometimes there is conflict. And this happened at one of my agencies where we had a miscommunication between the sales team and our client account manager. So you're nodding your head because this is unfortunately a regular occurrence.
Yes.
Within agencies that we see, communication is key for everything. And honestly, we took on a new client, and the client had expressed to our sales team that they needed things done urgently. We had set timelines. It took 14 days to get everything completed for launch. We were doing paid ads, and that it was not communicated to us that they wanted it done in 5 days. So we had kickoff call, and the client was I'm so excited. I went through all the documents. I even went through, it was a best practice for me to go through our contracts just to ensure that, we're reading everything, including the fine print, to make sure we're not missing anything. And there was nothing documented on their urgency to get this campaign out. So when at the 5-day mark, the client starts to be really irritable and really, I don't want to say rude, but they were not the nicest person to deal with, rightfully so. We did discover a few days later what had transpired prior to even meeting the client. So it's one of those situations where sure, it was a difficult client, but you never really know where they're coming from. And I think instead of going in hot, if someone's being difficult with you, don't be difficult back, because you never know what place they're coming from.
Yeah.
And truly, they were promised something that we didn't deliver on, even though I had no idea that we had to
Yeah.
deliver it
Yeah.
or at that pace, right? So it was like such an interesting lesson to learn because I wasn't expecting to find myself be the face of such a conflict that I had nothing to do with. I was just the messenger. And the messenger was, don't shoot the messenger, but they were attacking the messenger for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding. And so what did you guys do to kind of like help for the future with this kind of like situation?
Ooh. I created a survey to have the
Love
clients
surveys.
fill out their expectations, including the urgency and when do you expect these things to be done after they receive the onboarding package that includes our timelines as a team as well. So they would receive a whole layout of what to expect when they start working with us.
Yeah.
And then they fill out a survey regarding their urgency, like answering a few questions. So we had never dealt with that since. And then, of course, accountability is key. And I took accountability and, maybe I should have spoken to the sales person before and it aligned all of us more, which was great. So yeah, you never know where the difficult client will be coming from.
It's true. Timelines, I feel like, is the trickiest thing of it all because everyone has expectations that get unvoiced. And
Yep.
and depending on what kind of industry you're working in, there can be delays, unexpected delays that take place. So like with website development, and it depends on if you're working with like an old website, recoding, like all of that kind of stuff, it can delay things. And so I think it's like great that you guys have now part of the sales process, a timeline thing, because it really does set the standard, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's I now do this in all the agencies. I offer to make a little welcome deck that I
I
work in.
like that. You are
Yeah,
so good at onboarding too.
thanks. I actually love onboarding because I think obviously I learned the hard way how poorly it can go if you
Mhm.
don't set everything up
Yeah.
properly and
Yeah.
keep the communication, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what about you? I want to hear your story.
My story is about, I think it like a lot of it has to do with meetings. I think one of the things I have learned over time is navigating clients in meetings because essentially you do want that touch point with clients on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, but you either have one spectrum where you have a client who like never wants to meet with you and you're like, are we doing the right things, is everything going still well, because they're never in touch with you. And then you have on the other spectrum clients that want to talk to you all the time. They want easy access to you, that kind of stuff. So I'm talking about this kind of tricky client, the one where you get into the meeting and you have an agenda and they hijack it. And so in this one particular case, I had 5 point of contacts for one client, and they all joined the meetings. They all needed to be emailed. And what I learned over time, I had requested maybe we could just have 1 or 2 points of contact, but they said no, everyone. But what I learned over time with these meetings is they always ended up exceeding an hour and went into 2-hour time slots. And this is like unsustainable for anyone, really,
Never
especially
heard
in
of
the
it like
in the
2 hours.
marketing world where you're moving like this.
Yeah.
And so I had tried to reduce the meetings. I had gone through like multiple different ways, but I found out where the issue was lying was they would tend to have internal conversations. So they wouldn't come to the meeting prepared, even if I sent the agenda ahead of time. They would then come to discuss it in the meeting, which is why things got delayed. Because you can imagine if they're needing to make decisions, haven't talked about it outside this meeting, they're then coming into those meetings, having a discussion between 5 different individuals when to like come to the conclusion. So this is something I've learned, and I've actually established it, and it seems to work quite well since then, is the agenda was always available to them in the calendar invite. That was something. But how I'd start the meetings is I would say, this is what we're discussing today. And I would list out everything. And then I would ask them, is there anything else that you need to add to the agenda? And they would either say something and we tackle it then, and I'd keep it to a 10-minute time slot, or we'd move on with the agenda. And that seemed to like put into perspective for them, kind of, this is all we're discussing today. Rather than it being like, this is a time for you to kind of like jump in and offer like your opinions on random things that a team member brought up that has nothing to do with our marketing work with that particular client. And so it seems to work really well, but this is where I also want to slide in a very important note, which I feel like you are totally going to agree with, is these are the rules. These are the things that have worked with us, with clients. And then there's the exception. And so there are times where things never work. No matter how many things you put into place with clients, there's the exceptional client who's particularly tricky. And I think that that's like something to discuss with agency owners. And probably if you've done everything you can to work with this agency or with this client, by the time you get to the agency owner, they're already well aware that this client is tricky.
I know.
So, so they're probably way aware of like how to like kind of navigate things. So I always want to say that because I think when you're offering tips and opinions, it always seems like this is the be all end all answer to like a tricky scenario, but that's kind of like, see it as a rule. This is a rule that has worked with a good amount of clients, but then there's always the exception.
Always an exception. And at DOT, we're always taught as client account managers that we are the marketing experts. And more often than not, the clients are not. And so they're not just there to be guided by you, but they're also there to, in a way, learn from you. And it's not just learning about marketing, but it's also kind of learning about best practices and etiquette and what to do, what not to do, and best use of our time as well, because we don't just have one client, we have a multitude of clients.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's so important to say those things, because we want to hear what you guys are doing to manage clients that are coming in that are tricky, like the scenarios that we said, because we like are always open to hearing what everyone else is doing, because community helps like bring change, and you can't do that if you're just like doing it all on your own. So we want to hear what the listeners, you know, have been doing to deal with their own tricky clients.
Yeah, there can be so many different ways that they're being difficult, but you're not alone. And it's always best dealt with, you know, asking somebody who is familiar in the marketing world how best to deal with these tricky situations, because they do come up no matter how hard you try.
No matter every single process, protocol, and everything you put into place, you'll always have a moment with a tricky client.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, I think everything's going pretty smooth for me, but I am now way more prepared. Thank you for sharing your story, Kayla.
Yeah, thank you for sharing yours, Kristen.
Cheers to happy clients.